Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. We've got quite a wide array of everyone here on the call. Thank you very much for joining today's presentation. We've got a very important topic to discuss today, which is staff safety in hospitals. My name is Brock Martin. I head up the customer success team here at HID Healthcare RTLS, and I'll be today's moderator for our webinar. Our presentation today is going to include an introduction into BLE, or Bluetooth Low Energy Based RTLS. We're going to discuss the real-time monitoring, and we'll review key integrations with other hospital systems as well. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping notes. We anticipate today's presentation to be approximately 45 minutes long. All attendees will be in listen-only mode as we go throughout the presentation. As we progress, though, please use the chat box for any questions. We are going to reserve the last probably 5-10 minutes just to ensure we can answer any questions that pop up. And as we go through as well, any challenges with audio or visual, just let us know through that chat box as well. We'll monitor and address as we go. One final note, we do have a recording of today's presentation that will be available likely early next week, should any of your colleagues or customers may not be able to attend today. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started. Joining me today are my colleagues Carrie Brock and Marek Dukajewicz. So Carrie is our head of healthcare strategy at HID. Carrie oversees the sales and marketing and customer success and implementation teams. And Marek is our VP of technology and product strategy. So he heads up our product management and tech support teams. So we want to thank you again for taking the time out of your busy day to join us. And with that, I will pass it over to Carrie.
Thank you, Brock. And as Brock said, we do truly appreciate you taking the time to spend this next hour with us. We know everybody's days are jam-packed with meetings and other things that you could be doing, so we appreciate your time. For those of you who know HID and our parent company, ASSA ABLOY, they have a long history of acquisitions. I'm just going to draw your attention to a couple of them that are relevant to us in the RTLS healthcare space. So back in 2016, they started the journey into RTLS beyond passive, but into active RFID and other technologies, acquiring a company called Blue Vision, which has given us the BLE products that we use today. And we're going to talk to you a little bit more about that technology and why we're excited about it. Then there was an acquisition of OmniID, which impacted the industrial counterparts on our team for commercial and industrial applications in RTLS. And then more specifically, really the company got focused on the healthcare side and acquired Guard RFID, which is the company that Brock and Marek and myself all come from. I was the president at Guard RFID. And that gave HID a good solid base of healthcare customers. About 90% of the business for Guard was acute care hospitals in the US. We have a strong network of partners that we've had long-standing relationships with. We couldn't do what we do without those partners. And then we also acquired a company called Connexient, which is a wayfinding application. And I'm going to touch briefly on that as well, because I think that's also a significant piece to the puzzle. And I anticipate a couple more acquisitions on the horizon for us. We're actively looking for companies that are in the healthcare RTLS space to acquire. So I expect an expanded portfolio. So that's what I'm excited about. And just a little bit about the ASSA ABLOY and HID. So ASSA ABLOY, based out of Sweden's public company, about $12 billion. We've got colleagues in over 70 countries around the world. And then HID is actually a division of ASSA ABLOY. And we're headquartered out of Austin, Texas. We're about 4,500 people. And we are one of the most highly recognized brands in access control. Then we're in a division called IDT, which is part of HID, and we're everything to do with it, pardon me, identification technologies, and that's why IoT and RTLS rolls up into that division. So this has been a great acquisition for Guard. We're just had our 1-year anniversary since the acquisition on February 8th. And it's given us lots of opportunities. And probably the most important piece for us was just that the strength and stability of a brand like HID behind us. So for those of you who knew us on the Guard RFID side, We were a profitable privately held company based up in the Pacific Northwest in Vancouver, Canada. And sometimes that posed a little bit of a challenge for us, as we really, even though we were profitable and stable and had been in business for 17 years, we were still small. And for some US acute care hospitals, maybe they considered us not being in the U.S. was a concern sometimes. And so now we've eliminated that. Plus, we have the marketing and branding and resources that come with a large healthcare with a large company like HID. And it's given us the ability to go and expand our use cases that exist on for us at GUARD, and you can use the software and all GUARD, and we'll talk a little bit more about how your customers, if they're already a top GUARD customer, they can simply add in the infrastructure and have a staff safety solution. And Merrick, I'll let him touch on some of the things that have to do with cybersecurity and the level of competence that HID has in that space. And I think that's also a key thing that HID's brought to the table for us. So I'm going to pass this over to Merrick.
Okay, hello everybody. And I think the title here was Revolutioning Staff Safety Using BLE. So yeah, the vision that we have is that we want to improve the safety of healthcare workers. There's some stats in the little infographic on the right there, and there'll be some on the next slide as well, just showing that being a healthcare worker isn't a fun job these days. I think the one that I always get to is in British Columbia. It's more likely that you're going to be assaulted as a healthcare worker than you are as a police officer. So we certainly don't want to be equipping our healthcare workers with the same type of protections as police officers, but we can use technology to make their jobs easier and their life safer. And the primary method we're going to be talking about here is a mobile panic button, as it's often referred to. The advantages that BLE brings to this are allowing us to significantly reduce the cost of deploying these systems. So the goal is to have a reliable, secure, cost-effective, and easy-to-use system, easy to use for the users, as well as easy to manage. So we're not the first people to create this, but we're going to be learning from what's gone before, making it simpler to use, and the key is more cost-effective to deploy. And we'll show you more of the details of that as we go through this webinar. If you go to the next one, please, Brock. Okay, so lots more statistics here. 48% of hospital nurses surveyed in 2022 have seen an increase in workplace violence. And we're getting people leaving the workforce because of these reasons. We're getting people choosing which hospital they work on based on what types of security measures they're putting in place. So it's definitely front and center of the minds of various people within the healthcare organizations is how do we get a safer workplace? It's been a focus of the Joint Commission in 2023 and continues to be so in 2024. We get probably 2 or 3 requests from hospitals for quotes a week these days. So there's definitely business out there to be made. We need partners to do it. Many of you, I think, are on this call with us. So we'd love to hear more from you after this webinar is over. Anyway, so let's dive a little bit into more of the details. So traditionally, this isn't a new problem. Safety in healthcare facilities, anybody can pretty well wander into a hospital in most places, and it's not a high security environment, getting more so. But certainly within high risk areas such as emergency departments and behavioral health wards, the last couple of decades, systems have been put in place. Fixed panic buttons are quite often used. Those are difficult to find, though. They're often hidden under tables or put on walls. The last thing you want to do when somebody's accosting you or threatening you is have to wander over to a panic button and push it. They're also difficult to maintain. I hear reports from people, well, we had to put another one in that room yesterday, and now we're being asked to put it in here, have to run cables. It's not very effective. There have been a number of dedicated wireless panic solutions that have been deployed over the years. These tend to be single use case. They'll have some sort of devices on the roof and a little button that you can push. Those solutions seem to come and go every few years. Nothing's really made it to be commercially viable in the long run. So we're also seeing a lot of requests to replace those type of solutions. And then some of the active RFID RTLS solutions, including our 433 megahertz solution, are deployed for this type of use case, but the cost of deployment restricts them to use only in high-risk areas. So we have 20 or so hospitals in the lower mainland area close to our home office that are using the staff safety system in behavioral health. We've got some facilities that have deployed it in a new build behavioral health out in the east of Canada. We have a deployment going on that's facility wide, but generally we've bid them to a lot of other hospitals and it just doesn't make the cut for funding. However, BLE will significantly reduce that cost whilst still giving you an equivalent level of performance. So we think this is the solution that's going to really open up the market and allow us to be very successful in this space. Brock. So we've alluded a little bit to different technology choices. So in terms of HID Global and Guard RFID, we promote two different solutions into healthcare environments. The 433 megahertz solution is very reliable, very robust, and the choice if you actually need to rapidly lock doors. This has the fastest response time of any system out there. And it's super reliable at detecting when somebody is in the area of a doorway. It also has good RF performance for tags attached to people due to the lower frequency of 433 megahertz. Gets good battery life because it's custom designed for our RTLS solutions. So a very good choice. However, the price tag can be a little high. These are dedicated devices. They're purpose-built in the thousands or tens of thousands, not in the millions or billions like the BLE types of devices. So flipping over to the right-hand side of this chart, BLE is leveraging a technology that's built into every single smartphone, every single PC, a lot of Wi-Fi access points now. So it's deployed in the billions of units, and hence the cost point of everything is a lot lower than it is for a custom-built solution. So we can get cheaper devices, we can get cheaper beacons, we can get cheaper gateways, and the whole solution can be significantly cheaper to deploy. And using a combination of very fast beacon rates and some clever algorithms, we can get accuracy that's equivalent to these active RFID systems. In hospitals, the key measurement tends to be how accurately or how reliably can you detect somebody being in a room. And we can do that pretty well by using these plug-in gateways. We're also looking at adding support for the access points with built-in BLE. So both Cisco and Aruba have, in most of their newer or recent access points, they have BLE capability as well, and they have a way that we can tie into that to avoid duplicating equipment. That's also seen as a very key attribute by the decision makers within the hospitals. Instead of having to deploy an access point infrastructure and an infrastructure of BLE devices, gateways, we can leverage the existing access points and then just fill in for sufficient coverage or to get that room level accuracy using cheap, cost-effective gateways. Okay, Brock. So the goal is, we want to have an affordable, that word you'll hear me saying a lot. We are well known and have the backing of a larger organization than when we just got RFID in terms of getting all of the necessary security processes in place. This aligns with the healthcare facility best practices. So they're already using HID for access control. Now we can use HID for staff safety as well. We'll integrate in with the existing dispatch systems through alarm management systems within the hospital. So meeting a key feature of putting anything into a hospital these days is going through the cybersecurity reviews. And the advantage that we have with the system we have is that it actually is a combination of the BLE infrastructure together with our AllGuard platform that's placed on premise that has already gone through those cybersecurity reviews with about 300 or 400 hospitals in North America. Okay, Brock. So the system components are gateways, which are shown on this slide here. Let me see if I can hold one up. So the most cost-effective one is a little device like this. We call this a BlueFi AC. It has a 110-volt AC plug, and it'll plug into any standard electrical outlet. So typically we put one of these into each room within the facility, be it a patient room or an office. It's plugged in. It has a little security screw, so you can screw it in to make sure that somebody doesn't pull it out. These devices are MSRP, roughly $75, and the installation cost is the key. It costs maybe 5 minutes of somebody's time to plug it in, screw it in, and configure it, compared with for more traditional active RFID systems where you'd have to put something on the ceiling, run cables back to a PoE switch, and that could run you $200 or $300 just per device. For areas where we don't have coverage or a handy electrical outlet, there is a device that can be mounted to the ceiling or put above the ceiling. There's a mounting kit shown just below it on this slide here. This one is MSRP 150. It supports both 2.4 and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi for the backhaul and can be powered from PoE or from a DC power supply, 24 volt or 48 volt power supply. So this would be placed in corridors where either there wasn't an access point with BLE capability or a handily available electrical outlet. In terms of software, these gateways receive Bluetooth signals from the badges or the devices that are generating the alert. They then send that through the hospital's Wi-Fi network out to a Blue Zone cloud, which is the system that calculates the location and generates the alerts for things like a button push. That information is then relayed back to our AllGuard server, which provides the user interface and the integrations to other systems for the hospital. Okay, Brock, if we go to the next slide. A key element of the system is the actual device that people are going to use. The most commonly used one is termed a badge holder. So this is actually intended to go on a lanyard or on a little pull cord that's carried by the staff member. It has a nice handy slot at the back that is designed to take a standard access control card. So the staff member would take their access control card, slip it in the back here, hang it from the lanyard, and they're just carrying one device around that they can use. And it has a button here that you use to press to generate the alert. We have two other device options. There is a key fob style device that's shown on the bottom right there. This one has two red buttons at the side. You'll see a picture of a nurse wearing it on the right hand side there. And it can be used to generate alerts as well. A little larger. It has some audible and visible feedback in it. It has a replaceable battery, which is seen as an advantage by some, so you don't have to replace the whole device. Whereas these other two devices that I'm going to have showing you are device replaceable, so they have batteries, but they're not replaceable. The third device is the pendant device, so that's down the bottom left there. This would also be intended to be worn on the lanyard. We're actually just now creating a version that has a little loop at the top and the bottom that would allow it to go in line with the access control card. So the access control card would hang off the bottom and the device would be in the middle, and there's a button in the middle. Battery life of all of these depends a little bit on exact use case and configuration, but it would be at least 1 year, and typically the goal is to have 3 years of battery life out of these devices. So the combination of these Beats devices for the user to carry, as well as the gateways, gives you a cost-effective solution It's easy to deploy, easy to use, and easy to manage. If you can go on the next slide, Brock. In terms of architecture, one of the selling points of our AllGuard software that has helped us be very successful is that a lot of IDNs don't want to deploy a single solution for each hospital, and this solution takes that from our infant security experience into the staff duress domain. So you can deploy a single AllGuard server and service easily up to 5, maybe a few more if you want, different facilities. We've got some hospitals looking at doing little clinics, so these may be just very small 3 or 4 offices in a larger commercial block, so you could get maybe 40 or 50 of those onto a single server and be managing all of them centrally and have your alerts generated centrally and not have to worry about the maintenance of multiple software solutions. A second component that comes from the Blue Vision acquisition is the Blue Zone Cloud. So that actually takes the heavy lifting software work of calculating the location out of the hospital into the cloud. It doesn't have any secure information on it, so it simply knows a tag number, and if an event has occurred or what the RSSI was associated with the BlueFi was, the actual mapping of that tag ID to a person's name or a patient's name or anything that might be sensitive is all handled on the AllGuard server, thus guaranteeing the HIPAA compliance and ensuring that that there's no risk of a staff member's name or a list of staff members getting out to people that would use it for purposes for which it's not intended. And looking down the bottom, we've built over the years a rich suite of integrations to different systems, and that's carried out from that AllGuard server on premise. In the data center, that would be interfaced into a video management system and alarm management system to Active Directory to make sure that we've got the right privileges for people that are using the system. I think we have a little more on the next slide, so if you want to advance along, we can talk about integrations. So as I mentioned, we've got a rich set of integrations around this chart here. The two that are of relevance for staff safety are the alarm management and user management bubbles. So user management, this is keeping the system secure, making sure the people that log into the system are using the right passwords, have the right password policies applied, and that's done using an LDAP integration back to the hospital's Active Directory system. And then the alarm management system on the left-hand side there. The key focus or the key intent of a staff safety system is to generate an alarm very quickly and promptly to get help when somebody presses a button. And so that's done both using our software, but is often done by sending an alert to people that are maybe on the move or maybe in a dispatch center through an integration with somebody like Spoke or Connexol or the other partners that are listed on this slide. Okay, Brock. In terms of user personas, when one thinks about a staff safety system, the logical person you think about is the person that's actually carrying the badge and needs to push the button to call for assistance. Most of the systems out there do a pretty good job of that fundamental piece of it. However, different systems do a different level of support for the other personas that have to use the system. The second one is the responder. This is the security staff or the other staff members that need to respond to the event. They need to be given very clear instructions on where to go. Maybe it's a map, but more likely it's a simple room 102 or third floor, east wing, something that makes it easy for them to get there. They need to know if the person that called for help has moved since they called for help. You don't want to be responding to where they were when the event happened. By the time you get there, you have to try and guess where they've gone. So those alerts need to be updated as the location of the staff member caller in distress is changing. Third persona is a security manager. This is the person that will often be called for assistance and needs to look after the system. Yeah, the reality of these systems is every time somebody pushes a button isn't a real event. Quite often there can be 5 or 6 times as many false events or nuisance alarms, as we like to call them. We need ways of triaging those and avoiding them in the future. Yeah, we do that by redesigning the product. This product's already gone through a couple of changes to make sure that the button is recessed so that when it's put in a bag or carried around, it doesn't inadvertently create a call for help. So that security manager would typically be reviewing things on a monthly basis to see what sort of nuisance alarm rates there are and taking some steps to either educate or redesign the system to improve or reduce that alarm rate. Next, we have the system manager. This is often in IT or security. And then finally, somebody has to manage these badges. These systems only good if the battery is working. If somebody leaves this home for a month and then brings it in and the battery's gone dead, that's not a very useful system. Or if the badge has told you that it's flat and nobody's actually bothered to replace it, by the time it is actually truly dead, you can't find it to replace it. So that is a big job, is making sure that these systems work. And so we have back-end processes in place that make it easier to tell when something is actually due for replacement and then making sure it actually gets replaced, or generating reports to say, we haven't seen this badge for a month or 2. You should maybe check with the owner of the badge that maybe they've left it at home or lost it, and then you can replace it. So being proactive about that badge management is a key aspect of our system. Okay, let's move along. In terms of the way that the system works, if somebody pushes a button on this badge here, after it's a 3-second push, there's a little LED that starts flashing to indicate to the user that the duress event has been initiated. There will then be a pop-up on the AllGuard software. You'll see a tag duress alarm there. That shows where the event is initiated. If the person moves, as you can see, there's a ... below just below the red line there. That shows that they've moved from that first bedroom to the second bedroom. If they've changed floors, it would show you they've changed floors. So that allows the responder to actually get to where the badge holder is now, not where they were when the event was generated. Over to the left-hand side, there's an email that can be generated when the event occurs. This probably isn't a good idea to be the primary mechanism, but it can be a useful way of knowing other people on the ward know that somebody's in trouble and maybe they can get there faster than the other responder. Down the bottom right is an example of a Connexall display of alarms that is from a customer integration that we've done. I don't know whether we have any questions, Brock, that should be answered here out of chat. But,
yeah, we can take a quick breather here to see. I saw one question came in, Merrick, regarding is there a thought right now for a long battery for BlueFi gateways? So is there a battery option for those gateways when powering them?
Good question, interesting question, because there used to actually be a battery version before, when the original Blue Vision solution had a battery version, but it's actually been obsoleted. I think the challenge with batteries is however long they last, when they do actually go dead, replacing them often doesn't happen. So the general deployment model seems to be make sure it's powered and avoid battery operated devices if possible. And so, the benefit of batteries is that you don't have to run cables. As I mentioned, $200 or $300 per cable run is expensive if you can just put it on the ceiling with the battery. So I'll never say never, but we don't actually have that in the product roadmap right now.
Great. Fantastic. Yeah, and as a reminder for anyone, any other questions, please go ahead and pop those into chat. So Merrick, we'll keep going and we'll revisit, see if anything else pops up.
Yeah, so the second, revolutionary, I think, within healthcare anyway, part of the solution is the business model. For many years, non-healthcare applications or non-RTLS applications have been moving to a subscription model. So HR systems are using subscriptions. Probably a lot of people are using Salesforce. A lot of the business tools that people use are subscription-based. There's been a lot of pushback or reluctance to do that within the RTLS space and within healthcare in general. However, we are seeing that changing now. And the solution that we have created here, the Staff Safety Service, consists of two components. There is an upfront cost for the hospital to deploy these blue fires in the rooms, in the corridors, and wherever else needed. Professional services to install that, tune it, and commission it, and then purchasing of some of the perpetual license software from the AllGuard software. That is significantly lower than the upfront cost from putting in an active RFID system, and I'll show you, and I'll illustrate that in the chart on the right. So that makes it a lot cheaper. Maybe I will move to the chart on the right. So the chart on the right actually compares three solutions. The yellow one is an active RFID solution. So this example is a 430,000 square feet hospital with 2,400 staff who are each equipped with a badge. So you'll see for an active RFID system, the cost out the gate would have been about 800,000 for this system. By comparison, for the actual Bluetooth system, the actual cost of installation of the equipment is around about $200,000. So that's 25% lower in terms of the price of installation of the infrastructure. The second component, moving back to the left now, is that there is an annual subscription service that is charged per badge. So the MSRP of that is $50 per badge per year. It includes the badge or the fob or the pendant device, and we will replace the badges when the batteries have been used up. And so that's the second component. And as a result, you'll see the blue line does actually trend up and to the right quicker than the yellow line, because in the case of an active RFID system, you're just paying to buy new tags as needed, and you're paying for the maintenance on the system, typically at somewhere between 10 and 20% of the system cost. There is a competitor out there that's offering a fully SaaS-only offering, so there's no upfront cost. They basically pay for all the install. The downside of that is that it's about twice as much dollars per badge per year, and hence you'll see that gray line very quickly overtakes the blue line in terms of its cost. So we believe this BLE-based solution hits the sweet spot between being significantly cheaper to install than a traditional RTLS system, and giving customers the option that they can continue using that cost effectively over 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And then, who knows, maybe there's a better technology there. Maybe we've swapped in better technology. It just gives a much better long-term solution, rather than sinking up to $1 million into a system that you don't know whether it's going to work for you, and you only found that a year in, and then you've got all of that sunk cost. With the system, if you find out it doesn't work quite right a year in, maybe we add a few more devices. And the other key that we'll get into in a second is that this will actually grow into other use cases as well. So once you've got the infrastructure deployed throughout the facility, you can now do asset tracking, you can now do hand hygiene, you can now do wayfinding. So again, that's something that you can grow into. You don't have to spend all of the money up front. Okay, next one. So I think, Kerry, if I could hand back to you here, give my voice a little bit of a break. Thanks very much, and I'll be happy to take questions later on.
Thanks, Merrick. Great overview. And many good points to touch on there. And I think two things that we're looking at as we evolve out this RTLS roadmap that Merrick and I work on together. along with a team of product managers, is just what does the market need, what do the patients need, and what do the clinical staff use, and then what do the people that run hospitals actually need to bring this all together. And so when we looked at the history of the last 20 years of RTLS, it started out where they were very much specific use cases to a unit or a department within a hospital. So an infant security system to protect babies. That's how we got our start. High-risk patients that might be a danger to themselves or to others. So there was wander management developed to protect those in behavioral health or seniors with memory care issues. And then sometimes there are staff safety systems deployed, as Merrick talked about earlier. There's many different technologies tried and used, and a lot of times it was adoption of it or cost of it that prevented hospitals from doing these things across the whole facility. We touched on a little bit about Wi-Fi came around and hospitals deployed Wi-Fi systems for both staff safety and asset tracking, and thought, well, this will give us the full facility, but that was, fraught with challenges. We had our own Wi-Fi at Guard RFID for a short period of time, but just, realized it didn't provide enough safety for patients. And it was labor intensive and battery intensive. So changing out the batteries, you need a chief battery officer to change out all your batteries or recharge the devices. And that became sort of burdensome to get compliance. And so BLE was really a game changer in this space. And we were very excited to see, the evolution of BLE over the last few years. It's improved tremendously. And with those improvements, costs haven't gone up. If anything, costs have gone down on BLE infrastructure, and the tags have a nice long battery life similar to 433. So that's kind of the combination we were looking for. But as Merrick mentioned, the lower cost to deploy these systems across your whole facility is really the exciting part. You can plug them in or use batteries to power them. There are some DC available as well. So you've got quite a selection. If you're from the channel partner side, our system integrator network, there's lots of options here for you to deploy these for customers and for the hospitals. If you're making your decision on technology and which solutions, that scalability of the platform and be able to have multiple use cases on a software platform like AllGuard, and that you already have the cybersecurity compliance and you don't have to go through that exercise each time. You deal with one vendor and you can do it standardized across your enterprise, which we're seeing a lot more hospitals thinking seriously about this because of budget constraints and also because of supporting these things. It doesn't make sense to have all these small vendors, but it makes more sense to have a more focused enterprise strategy for your RTLS use cases. So then we saw staff safety, wayfinding, asset management, hand hygiene. That's where we're at currently today. And then where we're going is we believe there's a huge opportunity for hospitals and for IDNs to look at the data that comes out of these RTLS systems and actually look at where are patients, where are the clinical staff, where are the assets, and how can you more efficiently use that real estate within the hospital? How can you get your patients to their appointments on time? How can you make sure patients don't miss appointments? And how can you, help the clinical staff with their jobs with things like nurse call automation and saving time and improving the amount of time that they can spend with the patients and also improving the quality of care. So that's where we see this going to what we would call the smart hospital. So we're seeing that evolution. And I think over the next couple of years, we'll see some very exciting things and we'll see some consolidation in the market. So less vendors, but offering more solutions is the way the market's going to go. So a couple other use cases. So using that same BLE infrastructure. So if you decide, and I always encourage hospitals, to roll these things out, standardize on a technology and a vendor, but you don't necessarily have to try to roll out all these use cases all at once because you'll probably overwhelm your product or project managers and IT resources and clinical staff that can, they only have so much time to learn so many things at once. This uses some asset tags. There's a couple different form factors there, depending on the size of the the asset, and you know, if you need something that's more ruggedized or smaller and more discreet. Uses the exact same technology, so it uses the BLE readers, so the same ones that you install for the staff safety can be used for the asset tracking. Goes back to the Blue Zone software and talks to the AllGuard platform that you already have if you're an existing customer of Guard RFID, and this allows you to find your assets where they are, and also have information in there such as, you know, when warranty's coming up, maybe when servicing is required. So this is a great way to make things more efficient and control you know, how many devices and pieces of equipment are in a certain area, and making sure that those that are actually critical to the care of patients for, you know, emergency situations, to make sure things haven't wandered off, especially in certain departments like the emergency department. You know, things go with the patients and they need to replenish the quantities of those devices. So this system will help the biomed engineers do that. And it'll save the clinical staff having to hide things in linen closets and squirrel them away in other places because they're doing their best to provide good patient care, but it makes it hard for managing inventory and PAR levels. Next slide. Hand hygiene. We're in a trial with this right now. We have a large customer site that's piloting this in their emergency department right now. So again, it uses the staff safety badge that you would already have if you've purchased the staff safety system, or if your client's thinking of purchasing one. We are partnered with Gojo. So the model number here, this is a digital or smart device for dispensing. So inside the, there is a BLE, what we call a DIM inside, it's one of our products. It's inserted inside the Gojo hand hygiene dispenser. So then when somebody creates a dispensing event and they're standing there, it picks up the tag and it says, great, Merrick just sanitized his hands, and it records that data. So a couple of things. Hand hygiene compliance is required. It's very difficult for hospitals to do this in a manual way. Somebody's there with a clipboard walking around trying to be the hall monitor and make sure people are sanitizing. It is much easier to automate this. This has been a challenge for hospitals. They've been talking about this for a decade. And again, I think if a hospital is going to use this, it's kind of a secondary use case for RTLS, but if you already have the staff safety system, if you're already using asset tracking, this makes a lot of sense to use the same infrastructure and the same provider for this. This is a favorite of mine. So we bought Connexient, as I mentioned, a wayfinding company. This was purpose-built for healthcare. There are other competitors out there, but they tend to do wayfinding for other events, such as, you know, convention centers and arenas, resorts, shopping malls. Ours is specifically built for hospitals. You have three choices. You can use a custom-made app that we will build for you. You can use an existing app that the hospital may already have for their site, where we embed, we have a software development kit so they can build that out. And we also do the on-site kiosk where somebody can walk up and look for their information. So a couple of things that are great about this. One is missed appointments cost hospitals millions of dollars, and across the industry, it's probably billions. It also helps you navigate the facility and stops the or reduces bottlenecks at certain areas if the patient can just find their way to their appointment. It's also less reliant on staff. So you can imagine you're in a hospital. How many times a day does a nurse or you know, one of the porters get stopped and asked directions? Am I going the right way? How do I do this? There's also a lot of staff that are temporary in hospitals. So you have students, residents, you have travel nurses, and others that are also trying to navigate some of these facilities, which are quite massive, as you're all probably very familiar with. This will take you right from your house. I think that's on the next slide, Brock. This will take you right from your house to the parkade. It'll remind you where you've parked your car. So it does a great job. You just did slides there for me. Oh, sorry. I thought there was one more. I thought there was one more slide on the wayfinding. So if you're interested in wayfinding, there is a recording for the wayfinding, and we've done a webinar on that before. Or if you'd like to have a wayfinding demo, we can get more into the details of that. But again, uses the exact same infrastructure that you can use for the asset tracking and for the staff safety. So another way to maximize your investment. I'm going to take an opportunity to toot our horn here on two fronts. Those of you who are familiar with CLASS, they are a healthcare research firm, and they study RTLS systems. They have a report that comes out called Best in Class. So that'll be coming out later in 2024. This information is already available on their website. I believe you might need a membership to log in, but get in touch with us if you want more details on this. So GUARD RFID is part of HID. We came out #1 this year, ahead of Sonitor, ahead of Stanley Hugs, ahead of Centrec, ahead of Midmark. And the scoring on this was based on a number of components, based on interviews with our customers who were directors and above. And I think on the next slide, I've got just a little bit of extra details on there, which shows the different things that they measured. So they measured, you'll see 44% of GUARD's customers were very satisfied, then followed by 24% satisfied and acceptable. We had the most very satisfied and the least unsatisfied customers. So we're very proud of that. It combined a variety of components, and Merrick, you can jump in if I've missed some, but it had to do with the performance of the system, the cost, the value of it, the reliability of it, the customer experience, customer service. So incredibly proud of the team. If you have worked with our implementation and our tech support team, I think they are the best in the industry. They make my job very easy. I don't get a lot of calls and escalations, which I appreciate, but it also is just, it makes you proud to work with such a great team who are very responsive, not just to customers, but I would also say if you're a channel partner and you've worked with that team, I've heard from channel partners many times where they say that GUARD RFID is the easiest RTLS vendor to work with that they work with, and so that's just something that I think is a tremendous asset. And if that is your business as a system integrator and you're one of our partners, we thank you for the partnership, but also we're trying to make your job easier, not harder. And so with that great support team and sales team there to support you, I think you'll enjoy the experience, as will your customers. And if something doesn't go well, we will make it right. And I always give people, every customer gets my cell phone number, and I'm happy to talk to any partner or customer at any time. And then the last thing is Gartner. That's another industry review. There's a report that comes out every year called the Magic Quadrant. Probably familiar with it. They study multiple industries. They have one in particular that's of interest to us, which is called the Indoor Positioning Report. Kind of a funny name for it, but that is what they consider RTLS. So the ability to find something or someone indoors. And we have seen a sneak peek at the report, and HID combined with GUARD RFID in that offering has now ranked the highest amongst all the competitors in the RTLS or indoor positioning space. So that's pretty exciting. That'll be out later this month. And then we'll be able to share that report with you. But those are those kind of proof points and other things. If you're one of our partners, this is the kind of stuff that you want to be leading with. Why are you recommending HID or GUARD RFID as your vendor? That's one of the reasons. This is also something that came out recently. We'll put the link with the recording, but Mayo Clinic is one of our largest customers, and they had concerns with violence being directed to their healthcare workers. And so we've worked with them for the last 5 years. We designed and implemented a solution, which they've now rolled out across multiple sites. If you've ever been to that Rochester campus, you'll know it's a massive facility. They're actually doing a hand hygiene pilot, as I mentioned. And their use cases that they've expanded to now are asset management, patient workflow, hand hygiene, staff safety. So they've got tens of thousands of tags. They tag every patient now that comes into their facility, and they have plans to expand and start using the wayfinding in 2024. So that's exciting. They've been a great partner. They have an incredibly strong team internally at Mayo that really understands RTLS. So that's one of the things, as well as is helping educate the hospital and the IDN on how RTLS works and what to expect, and getting them to raise their knowledge of the technology and how to deploy it, utilize it, roll it out. We're happy to work directly with the hospitals, with you, if you're a channel partner, to make sure the hospitals really understand how to do these things well. So I think what we'll do, just in summary, again, thanks very much for your time and attention. I hope there's some questions that we can answer in the next couple of minutes, but we're really thinking about this from, protecting those healthcare workers. They're so vital to us. They took us through that, such a difficult time in the pandemic. 90% of the clinical staff are female. So they're at a disadvantage already, and we really want to make sure that they're protected and safe and that they can come to work. We don't want them on partial duties. We don't want them missing work. We don't want them to have PTSD. We need them for ourselves, our family, and our healthcare, and it's so incredibly vital to protect this vulnerable group of workers. And they shouldn't, they're such a caring group that often they don't report these assaults and incidences, which are 95% perpetrated by the patients, and they're just too kind to, they don't want to turn in a patient or, report these things. So I think these statistics are actually underreported, which is really scary because they're already shockingly high. It's safer to be a crab fisherman or a construction worker or a police officer, and that's just doesn't seem right to me. So I hope you'll be out there helping us deploy these systems. And if you're a hospital, let us know how we can help you. These things can be rolled out in stages to keep your costs down. If you don't have a full budget, you can do it in stages, put it in the most high risk areas where you've had the most incidences and build it out from there. This is very scalable. You can start small and grow along with us. So thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you, Carrie. So yeah, a reminder for everyone, the chat is open. So any questions, just go ahead and pop those in there. For Carrie and Merrick, I did have a few private chats that were sent to me directly. So Merrick, I think you touched on this, but what is the battery life again of the badges?
Yeah, very key. It's very difficult to get badges back and replace them. So our goal is a 3-year battery life. I think the badges are roughly in the 2 to 3 year range. That little button one is probably more like a 1 to 2 year range. We do continue to work on improving that. One of the good things about duress badges is they don't need to be used except when you're in duress. So by lengthening or slowing down the advertising interval, we believe we can get longer. So we continue to work on that, but currently we can count on 2 to 3 years of battery life.
That's great. Another question, Carrie, you just touched on this, but how long does a typical deployment take for staff safety?
It can be done faster, but I think conservatively, I would say somewhere in that 60 to 90 day range. And it really depends on, at the front end, getting the IT team involved, making sure that they're satisfied with the technology, cybersecurity forms are completed, and then coming up with a project manager on the facility side. We have an implementation team, project managers, to support the partner or the hospital directly, and I would say that's pretty standard. If it's new construction, that's the only caveat I'd say there. If something is a renovation or new construction, as you know, I would say none of those projects follow the timeline. Everybody's very optimistic, but there really can be some dragging there. But other than that, I'd say yes, it can be done quite quickly. And like I say, it can be done scalable to floor by floor, department by department.
Great.
It's a question in the chat there, Brock. I just saw pop up.
Yeah, so this one may be for you, Carrie. Will duress and staff safety asset track, are we looking to expand that beyond the healthcare realm?
So it's a great question. So I do have a counterpart on the industrial side that does industrial and commercial deployments quite successfully. So they could do duress. They definitely do asset tracking. They do condition monitoring and some other employee mustering. So I used to do some of those use cases myself, but we've within the team, we're just too busy to kind of crisscross back and forth. So if anybody wants an introduction, my counterpart who looks after that is Brad Williams. And we can share his contact information. They have a good team on that side, and they can help you with that.
Great, thank you, Carrie. Merrick, there's a question again. I think you touched on this a little bit, but asking about DNA spaces, Cisco or Aruba. Can you elaborate and just go talk about that again?
Yeah, so obviously installing of this infrastructure is a big hassle, and if we can manage one system, not two systems, that would be better. So both Aruba and Cisco, who are the major providers of Wi-Fi access points to healthcare in North America at least, do have BLE receive capability built into their access points, and then they have a cloud backend that they can deliver information to, and that can be delivered to third parties like HID Global so that we can use that for our purposes. So we have got that integration approved with Aruba already, and we're we have it working in the lab with Cisco, not yet at the formally approved stage, but that should come later this year. And in that case, we would be able to leverage that infrastructure together with BlueFi's. We don't expect that we'll get the room level reliability needed with the access points alone, but we should be able to halve or quarter of the number we use by using the access points. To be aware of is that is a licensed capability from Cisco. It doesn't come for free with your access point. You have to have the appropriate spaces license enabled, and it's not simple to understand the licensing methodology. So just make sure you're asking about RTLS or get us involved just to make sure that we have the right licenses in place before we move forward.
Great, thank you, Merrick. We'll do one more and then we'll wrap up. Carrie, maybe I'll pose this one to you. So someone in private messaged me to ask that they already have infant security. It's been running for several years. What steps would be needed to add in duress or asset tracking?
All right, well, that's a great question to wrap with. So yes, if they already have the AllGuard deployed on their server, then they're just adding in the infrastructure, the BLE infrastructure, and if they need an extra user workstation license, they'd be buying the workstation license. So that will save time and costs, and then they would just, from an IT perspective, just have to determine if they're comfortable with the staff safety and the infant security on the same server, or would they partition that server or add a secondary server? We would talk through that. I don't want to go too far into the weeds, but we would have a discussion. Yeah, there's our contact information, and happy to do further dialogue. Somebody asked about the Mayo Clinic. We'll send a link to that in this chat shortly, and we'll let you know when the recording is also available. And again, really appreciate everybody taking the time today, and hope you have a good day. And we'll sign off as we're at the hour.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.